this lesson, we're going to finish cleaning up some of our UVs and prepare the scene for Mudbox and start texture painting, which is what I think we're all interested in. The UV layout is pretty tedious and boring, but it's a necessary step. At least right now it is. Hopefully in the next iteration of Maya, we'll see p-text come out with it, bundled with mental ray. If that's the case, then a lot of this UV nightmare that none of us really like to be involved in will sort of fade away, and we'll begin working with p-text. P-text is already included in Mudbox 2012, so you can always take a look at that and some of the free tutorials out online on what p-text does. But right now we're sort of stuck with UVs, so let's go ahead and finish up with this and get started. So I have everything laid out here. I went ahead and did the UVs for both the handle, as you can see right here, using the same approach that I did on the can, just dividing it up. I'm back here with my just basic shader on here. I also did all the pieces, very small, the individual pieces for the cap. So each and every one of these is broken out now. Okay. And I would say at minimum, do the handle, just so it blends in and looks to be part of this overall can. You can bypass the cap and mechanism up here and just put a procedural shader on there from Mental Ray or something like that, and just go with that. Give it a metal look. If you do want rust and pitting on here, weathering, you are going to have to jump in there and do the layouts for it. I can still see I have a little bit of overlapping. Well, most of it's cleaned up now. This took about an hour to do, so if you got the time and you want to do that, I've got some overlapping right here on this piece is overlapping that piece, so let me go ahead and move that down and over. That should be out of the way there. Okay, good. All right, so a lot of little pieces to deal with, pretty tedious, but the end result is quite nice if you want to go to that extra step. Okay, we've got a couple more things we need to do before we send this over to Mudbox. Go ahead and close that down. You can see I've got some history here I want to get rid of, so I'm just going to select that, delete by type history, clean that up. Go ahead and just do that for the overall. I think everything's been deleted at this point. Just make sure the history is deleted on that. And with everything selected, that's just dragging a marquee. So I'm not in the group. I'm actually selecting all the individual pieces with a marquee. I'm going to come under Mesh and select Smooth. Okay, we can see that under Inputs here. And if we click on there, we can see our divisions are set to 1, which is where we want to leave them. The higher you take this up, or to take this up to 2, it's going to divide it even more. I don't think we need quite that much on there. I think 1 will work fine. Okay, so with our smooth on, we're going to leave it like that. You don't want to go back with the smooth node on there, the modifier, and delete the history on that. That will bake in that information to this piece here, and you won't ever be able to get back to your original model. So either do a save as or duplicate your model, or if you want to ever go back and modify the model in any way, you can always set this back to 0. That'll take it back to your original state that it was in when you were modeling it, and then you can always come back in and delete the history on it, and it will clear that out. You can make adjustments on your model and then reapply that smoothing on there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take that back up to 1 again. Okay, just kind of checking everything over here. I think we're good to go. Everything is at 1. The next thing we need to do is I'm going to just take it back to the original existing Lambert 1 shader. So we're going to get rid of all that color on there. It served its purpose, so we're sort of done with those. We can actually delete them out of here now. Just shift select those and hit the delete key, get rid of them. All right. So we're just back down to our Lambert 1 shader. And if we click on here, everything is zeroed out. Go ahead and select the whole thing I'm going to freeze transformations. Okay. And last thing I want to do is select the group. So if I just click on here and arrow up, it's going to select the group. You can also come to the outliner, select the group this way. And I'm going to go ahead and zero this out as well. I've got some scaling on here. So I'm going to just take it back to 0 on everything. And before I send this over to Mudbox, we're almost ready to get over there. Mudbox has a different scale to it than Maya does, so we need to actually bump this up quite a bit. I'm going to select scale X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to bring it up to 90. And you can see the grid right there is very, very tiny right in the center. We're actually in the middle of it right now. And we do actually need to bring that back up on the grid, otherwise it's going to be intersecting the grid in Mudbox. So I'm going to guess it's about 100 up. Actually, it's quite a bit more than that. There's 300. I'm still not seeing it, so let's just go ahead and grab it. There's the grid right there. It's very, very tiny. And we'll just bring it right down to about there. So it looks like it's just hovering above a little bit. It's so small it's actually going to kind of get swallowed up in that area we extruded. So I'm at 1040, just say 1040. I think that will be kind of a nice round number. Okay, so I zeroed it out before. That way we can always bring it back to the original size of the model by just zeroing out or putting 1 here and 0 here, take us back. And this has no effect on our UVs, so our UVs are still the same size. The scale of the mesh or the model doesn't affect the size or scaling of the UVs. And I'm just checking one more thing here. I think I'm right up on the edge. Actually, I've got a little bit of overlap right here, and I know that Mudbox will complain about that. So I'm going to grab the UVs, go to shell, and move that over just a bit. And up. Okay. The other thing we can do is just sort of reposition these a little bit. It's sort of like relaxing them. This is the shortcut right here. This will automatically kind of space the UVs out for better texturing. So I'm just going to click on that once. You can see it kind of relaxed them a bit and divided them up a little bit more evenly. I'm going to do the same thing here. And you don't have to select all of them. It'll do it to all of them without having to grab them all. Okay, so there we go. And there may still be some overlapping in here. I'm going to sort of leave it alone for now and move forward with this. We'll see the overlapping. Some of the overlapping may be like up inside of the areas in the cap that we're not ever really going to see. So I'm not going to worry about them too much. Okay, so I'm going to arrow up. I've got the entire group here selected, the Jerry Can group. We're scaled up and ready to go to Mudbox. I'm going to say File, Send to Mudbox, and send as new scene. See it connecting to Mudbox now. And importing the mesh. There it is. All right, so we can see it's sitting on the grid here. So like I said, the scale over here is quite different than Maya. So it's actually sitting in the scene quite nicely. We should be able to get plenty of detail and texture on here. If you're not familiar with Mudbox, I have a couple videos out on YouTube that you can check out. It's texturing in Mudbox a cartoon character face, so that kind of goes over the basics of Mudbox and how to use it. So if you're not familiar, go ahead and check out that video first and then step back over here and you should be able to kind of pick up with where we are. So I'm going to hit W on the keyboard. That's going to show me my original mesh. It came out of Maya. And to subdivide, you hold down the Shift key and hit D on the keyboard. So we can see we're up another level. I'm going to take it up 2 levels. I think that should be enough. Our polygon count is up pretty good now. And we're going to start off using the paint tools. We're going to use a projection brush and be projecting textures on here. I think that's going to give us that sort of weathered paint, rusted look that we want for this aged Jerry can. And to achieve that, we need some nice textures to work with. I spent a little bit of time out on the internet. This is kind of one of my favorite places I like to go, textureswithaz.com. You can always donate them some money. Their textures are free. They are high resolution, over 2K across, and they've got quite a bit of nice stuff in here to choose from. I tend to start with these. Sometimes I'll even combine several of them or alter the colors as needed inside of Photoshop. But this is a great place to find high resolution textures without spending a fortune. You can always spread the word and share them out on Facebook. All right, so just close that down. And in Photoshop, I took some of these textures in here, and this was the original one, and I just color corrected it to get it into that army green that I want. Here's another one. It started off with this sort of pink color that I didn't really want, so I took it into a green range, just shifting the hue on it. These are some other ones that I used. It's just altering the color. Same thing here. Here's the original one, brought in that army green, laid it on top as a multiply. Same thing here. So this sort of gave me a kind of a closer range of colors. They're not all exact, but they are definitely close enough for me to paint this, and then if I need to do any fine tuning, I can always come back in and do that inside Mudbox to kind of finalize the look of it. So I'm just kind of framing up on here. There we go. So I went in and I selected the object. If you're having problems kind of maneuvering around your object, if you haven't started painting on it yet or sculpting, a lot of times Mudbox doesn't rotate around the object properly, so you can always come in and just grab your object under the object list and then hit F on the keyboard, which is what I did right there. I'm using Maya hotkeys, and that way the camera should rotate around here properly. All right. So under my image browser, I have my folder out on my desktop. We can load it up. So right here, I've got Jerry Can textures. So I just chose the folder itself, and it brings in all the images right here, so you can access them very quickly. I brought in a couple of references as well. I kind of like this rusted look. There's the army green that I'm kind of going for. Right now mine's a little bit more saturated than this, so I'll probably bring it down to look a little bit more like this color right here. This is sort of a kind of a neutral base color that we can work with. It's got some pitting and weathering on it, but it's not as defined as something like this with very obvious scratches. Usually when you start off with a base, you want something less detailed, something that you can kind of very easily spread across your mesh. See, this has got a lot of detail. This is going to be nice for adding some rust in the end. Same thing here. We could use some of the area over here for the base color. It's not as noticeable. You're not going to see patterning, and that's really what you want to avoid. It's just some obvious patterns or things that look like cloning. You want to stay away from that. So this will be some nice detail to add a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and select what I'm going to use for my base color, this one right here, and I'm going to turn this into a stencil. Come back out to my 3D view, and right now it's just showing up as a sculpture tool. So I'm going to hit the projection brush, and we should see it showing up. This is the color, and I'm going to line it up, probably zoom in a little bit, and begin covering this. So I could very easily kind of zoom way out here and just hit this with a big brush and kind of show you what that looks like. I'm hitting B on the keyboard to scale my brush up. First time you try to paint on here, it's going to ask you to create a new paint layer. You always want to rename your default paint layer 1 to whatever layer you're working on. So in this case, I've got base color. I'm going to leave it as a 2K. and a PNG is fine. And we're working with diffuse. You can see it's bringing up the little menu there to show you what it is. Under here, you've got other channels to select. There's specular, gloss, bump maps, which we're going to get into as well. But for now, we're using just the default diffuse. OK on the keyboard. Just hitting OK there. And we can come back to layers and see our first layer right there. Strength is at 100%. So if I just came over here and actually I need to deselect that. So deselecting the model, that's just holding down the right mouse button. There's some sub menus in here. This is just the right mouse button, and if you hold down the space bar, you get some other menus here. If you hold down the space bar and the right mouse button, you get some more marking menus as well. And before I begin painting on here, I actually want to assign it a new material. So I'm right mouse clicking, and I'm going to assign it a new Mudbox material. Okay, and it defaults this kind of tan color right here. I don't really want that. I want to kind of bring it a little bit more into the range that I'm working with. So that's a little bit more of this kind of muted green color. Okay, so I'm going to choose that. I don't want any specular on it, so I'm going to take the specular to black. Okay, everything else should be fine. Go ahead and close that down. You can also rename that. That's under the object list there. So here's our new material. We can right mouse click and rename the material. Just call this base material, MTL for short. Okay, so if I begin painting on here, it's asking me for a new layer. I did the old layer was under the original shader, so okay, so there we are. There's our base color. So if I begin painting on here, when I'm out this far, what happens is, let me hit W and get the mesh off of there. Not only is the scale kind of off, but also let's hit Q to turn off that. And you can see that the resolution isn't so great. And the scale's a little odd as well. We've got some kind of a face issue going on right here I'm going to have to check out. This is also stretching. You're going to find this a lot in Mudbox when you're working with it. But we'll deal with that in a moment. So Q to turn on that stencil again. So what I like to do is really just kind of zoom in here and get a little bit higher quality, even if it takes me a few more passes. Bring my brush size down, and you can see that the resolution of this is much nicer. So it's going to require a little bit more work than just, hitting it one time on the side there. So we've got a little stretching right here going on. We're going to have to look at that. This is where you're going to start seeing your issues show up with your UV layout. They're not laid out properly. Such as this little piece right here, I'm going to have to go in and figure out what's going on there. So I'm just starting to work my way around here. I can also move the stencil around holding down the S key, so I'm not painting everything in the same direction. You really want to try to break it up and not have any obvious patterns showing up. You're seeing kind of this little light area here, right here, and it's repeating here and here. So if I see too much of that, it starts looking like I'm just sort of cloning and using the same source, the same texture. So I may actually go into Photoshop and take that out if it really starts bothering me. Okay, and just rotating it around again. Okay, and some of the areas in here, I'm not going to worry about too much yet. We will come back and start adding some detail in there. Rotate this around again, just to break it up a little bit more. All right, so this is starting to look good. All right, so we have some stretching that's occurred along here, so I'm just going to start painting on this side now, just kind of being careful not to paint outside of that edge. And I'm going to twist this around again. All right. So the base tends to take the longest, I think. I'm going to make the brush a little smaller and just kind of come up this edge here. And you would do this for any seams that you had showing up. Just kind of make your brush a little bit smaller, and here we're kind of covering up some of the problems. I've got another little UV problem right here. You can see that stretching happening. So that's going to have to get addressed. Okay, a little bit of stretching right there as well. Another problem right there with the UV. So we've got some little corner issues right here to deal with. And these aren't too troublesome. You can usually figure out what they are pretty quickly. Take my brush size down, start coming around here. Okay. Okay, so you can kind of see what's going on here. I've got the same issue that I have over here. I didn't check the normals on this before I brought it over. That's another step that we should have taken, was just looking at the normals, reversing any that may have been pointing in the wrong direction. All right. So I'm just kind of roughing all this in here, getting a decent base down, and then I'll step back over into Maya and see if I can figure out what's going on, and then just update the information. And since Mudbox and Maya are connected, those updates should happen automatically. Once we save it and just send it back over with the updates, it should correct that problem. So go ahead and finish getting your base color on, covering everything up. And if you have any problem areas, we'll have to take it back into Maya and go back into the UV texture editor and correct those. And we will do that in the next lesson. All right.